Well, greetings to each of you, and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown, a podcast about corrections, for corrections, and by corrections. I am your host, Aaron Dawson. Good to be with you yet again. I hope that you are enjoying the episodes of Season 2. We want to try to keep those topics fresh and interesting and challenging to each of you. I'd encourage you, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions, please send us an email at shakedown@jailtraining.org. Love to hear from you. If you're enjoying this, get the word out. Get the word out to the folks that you work with. Get the word out to people that you know that are in the industry, or maybe just mildly connected with the industry. We want to make sure that this is a resource that is beneficial to as many people as we can help with the resources and the topics and the things that we discuss. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to make mention of that we are very excited to announce that the second half of the conflict management techniques course is up and ready to go. The original course on conflict management was for administrators and supervisors, primarily dealing with conflict between supervision or administration and staff. But Dr. Steve Sampson, the writer of this course, he is now completed, and we now have available the second half of it, which is conflict management techniques for corrections officers, dealing primarily with the interactions between line level staff, corrections officers, and inmates. And so if you are interested in getting some more information about that, you think you might like to host or have a training at your facility or in your area, shoot us an email at training@jailtraining.org. That's training@jailtraining.org. And we would be thrilled to be able to discuss with you how we can get the components of this awesome course in the hands of your staff. As far as our episode today, I want to begin a series focusing on sharpening our skills. And we're moving into the summer months where traditionally school, whether it be a grade school, whether it be college, is in a hiatus, if you will, and people are thinking vacations and thinking spending some time with family or relaxation, as opposed to the traditional educational model. But as we know in the field of corrections, there is no hiatus. There is no time to just let our guard down. And it's imperative that we continue to sharpen those skills that we have. There is no point in our career where we're gonna arrive, we're gonna make it, we're gonna be there where we've got all the information we need, we've got all the tools that we need, we have all the necessary skills developed at peak performance, and there's nothing left for us to do. I hope that's not a shock to you if you were looking for that point. I hate to rain on your parade, but that's not going to happen. So I want to start a series on sharpening our skills, and I've got some interviews scheduled that we're going to be doing in the next few weeks, and I'm real excited about some folks that are very wise and knowledgeable in the field to give us some tips and some ideas as far as what skills maybe we need to sharpen and how we need to go about sharpening those skills, and things that we can do on a practical and a real level to make sure that our skills are sharp. Before we get into those interviews and some of those topics, I'd like to take some pieces out of a course that I did for NIJO for JailCon, good grief, 3 or 4 years ago. And the name of the course is How Do I Grow? And I believe that course is on Dakota, so you can find it if you find what we're talking about interesting. You can look it up on Dakota and get the full course, as it were. But the whole point of that class or that lecture on how do we grow is making sure that you and I do not allow ourselves to stagnate. We don't allow ourselves to say, you know what, I've arrived, I've made it, there's nothing else I need to do other than just coast through the rest of my career, coast through each shift, coast through each week, each month, each year, and just ride it out. Because as it's been said, the minute we stop growing is the minute we start dying. And I certainly don't want to see in my own life or in the lives of any of you a situation where we're just there. We're not growing, we're not progressing, we're not moving forward. We're just present. And so when we talk about growing, one of the things that I used as part of my research for that course was looking at the growth process in plants. Excuse me. Now, being up front and honest, I am not a plant guy. I do not have a proverbial green thumb. As a matter of fact, if you have plants that you want to grow, you probably want to keep me as far away from them as possible, because I am not good when it comes to plants. I've always said that there are three kinds of plants. There's the plants you eat, there's the plants you mow, and then the third kind is the plants that you don't mow, and I'm not exactly sure why, but maybe somebody will explain it to me. But one of the things that I have enjoyed watching is, my mother-in-law and my wife, both of them, love growing and nurturing and working with plants, and it's been fascinating to watch the enjoyment that they have and the knowledge that they have in the different types of plants and what this type of plant needs and where it needs to be planted and what this type of plant needs and the right time of year to plant this and to plant that and the expectations that go into it. But the growth process in plants provides you and I with some really awesome illustrations of some things that we can do in our own lives to make sure that we continue to have a mindset of growth. And one of the first things that you notice when you start digging into and looking into plants is that plants are equipped. When they grow, they are equipped with everything they need to grow. It's already inside of that plant. Everything they need to continue growing is already there. And when we look at that and we consider that as it applies to us, everything that we need to grow is already there. Everything, all the tools, all the mechanics, all the software, if you will, everything that we need to grow is already built into us, whether that be physically, whether that be psychologically, whether that be emotionally, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to put in there, the tools and the components are already there. What we need to add is the desire to push forward, the desire to grow. Another thing that we notice when we start looking at plants is that plants pull in from what is around them, wherever they're growing, whatever the soil, the atmosphere, the area in which they are planted, they pull in from what is around them. And so when we start talking about growth and how we're going to grow, we need to kind of take an assessment and think about, all right, what is it that's around me that is already there to facilitate and to help me grow. One of the things we can think about when we talk about that is the environment. What is it? Where is it that we're working? Where is it that we're living? What is it that we can learn simply by observing what is going on around us? Working in the corrections industry, obviously, we're constantly surrounded by people, and we're constantly surrounded by people interacting with each other, different tones of voice, different facial expressions, different approaches, whether it be verbal or otherwise. We're constantly being surrounded by things that can teach us and can help us to understand, okay, what works and what doesn't. I remember as a new corrections officer coming into the field, I already had a background in education and in ministry and interaction with people. So I came in already with some concepts and some mindsets and some philosophies that would help me interact with fellow staff members, my supervisors, and the inmates. And it was intriguing to me, things that I considered just matter of fact. This is what works and this is what doesn't. So I'm going to do the thing that works. I'm not going to do the thing that doesn't. And I'd see my fellow corrections officers making what in my mind were simple mistakes. But could it be that they had never seen demonstrated what does work? And so we need to assess and take stock of what is going on around us, and every interaction that we have and every interaction that we observe that other people have, use that as an opportunity to learn and to grow. The second thing when we talk about pulling in from what's around us is the amount of knowledge that is ingrained or is inside of the minds of the people that are around us. I guarantee you at your facility, you have people who have been doing this for a long time. You have people that have knowledge of things that you don't have. And the only reason that they have it, you don't, is that they've had the experience, or maybe it's because they asked. Well, ask. Ask. If you're facing a difficult situation, you're facing a scenario in which you don't know what to do, ask somebody. Ask somebody. I guarantee you there's somebody within your facility, within your agency, or somebody that you have contact with. Maybe you've attended some conferences and you made some contacts with some other people, or you know some folks in a neighboring county, or whatever the case may be. Reach out and ask them, and glean from the knowledge that they have gathered, and you can apply it and not have to make the mistake. So we can pull in from what is around us. Another thing when we consider plants is that where they are planted makes a huge difference in the growth rate and the ability that they're going to have to be a healthy and growing plant. Now, plants, most plants don't have the option of deciding where they're planted, whereas you and I do. But when we look at that from an illustrative perspective, we can say that, all right, let's look at where I'm planted. What are the things that I have experienced personally in my life that may have nothing to do with corrections? But what are the things that I have experienced in my life that I can draw from to help me learn and to grow and to be a better corrections officer? What have I learned in my interactions with my family? What have I learned in my interactions with, in my education and going to school? What have I learned from maybe previous employment? What have I learned from mistakes that I've made in my own life, or successes that I've had in my own life? What have I experienced that, that may not be filed, if you will, under the corrections tab in our mental filing cabinet, but there's lessons there that we can pull from and then we can use. Another thing we can think about is what abilities, what skill sets, what hobbies do we have that could apply the things we have learned based on those abilities and those skill sets and those hobbies that may have nothing to do with corrections, but what can we apply and what we have learned and what we know about those things into the field of corrections. Growing up, I had a grandfather that was he was a professional carpenter. He was a master carpenter, and I remember as a little child spending time in his shop with him. And he had a bucket that was his scrap lumber bucket. When I would come out there to hang out with him in his shop, he'd give me some wood out of that scrap lumber bucket, give me a hammer, give me a little bucket of nails, and tell me to go to town. And I'd be beating stuff together and trying to, construct something that I had seen in my mind. And he would watch me, and there'd be times where maybe he might step in and he'd say, all right, no, don't do it like that. Don't try to put the wood together like this. Put it together like this. Or he'd address the way I was holding the hammer, swinging the hammer, or holding the nail, or the specific nail that I used. Well, it's interesting. Based on the knowledge that I gained from just sitting under a master carpenter, how many of those skills are applicable when it comes to dealing with people, when it comes to dealing with coworkers, when it comes to dealing with supervisors, when it comes to dealing with inmates? Having the right tool, using the tool the right way, assessing the material that you have, all those common things when it comes to woodworking, they have application when it comes to dealing with people and dealing with inmates. Another thing that we want to consider is, what is our personality? Now, I'd love to in the future maybe do a series talking about personality and some assessments and some things that we can do to kind of understand ourselves. But one of the things that at a basic level the personality does is it dictates how we view what's going on around us, and it dictates how we receive and how we interact with other people and other things. And we're wired with a personality, and that personality is going to dictate how we respond, how we interact, how we perceive. And that's going to be different probably than the coworker or the other inmate or the housing unit of inmates or our supervisor. What strengths and what weaknesses do our personalities bring to the table? And how can we utilize those strengths and weaknesses to our benefit? The third thing when we consider plants is that plants pull in the resources that are available to them from where they are planted. They pull in whether it be the amount of sunlight they can get because of the other plants, whether it be the nutrients that are in the soil, whether it be whatever it is that they need to grow. They pull in and they use what is available around them. And certain plants will grow better in certain areas simply because of what is available in that area. So when we consider our growth process, one of the things we want to consider is what's available to us. what's available to us around us. What knowledge is available for us to glean? What education can we receive based on what's around us? And guys, I want to tell you, it used to be where, to gain some education, you had to go to a conference or you had to go to a training. And, that's awesome. That's great. That's fantastic. Obviously, don't want to, degrade that or say that's not a good idea. If you have the opportunity, go soak up as much training as you can, as your agency will allow you to soak up. Go get them. Go to the jail cons. Go to the academies. Go to the taser certifications. Go to the defensive tactics certifications. Go to the conflict resolution trainings. Go to all those trainings that you can soak up. But due to technology, there is so much education that is available to us simply by opening up Google on our phone and start searching stuff or getting online. And there's stuff on YouTube. There's websites. There's articles. There's journals. There's all kinds of material that is available at our fingertips to educate ourselves and to help equip us to continue to grow. And I challenge you, pull in those resources, utilize those resources, and make use of them as far as our growth. And the last thing I'll say in this episode, when we're using plants as an illustration, is that one of the coolest things about plants is that they pull in from the resources, they pull in the resources around, they pull in the nutrients, and as they grow, they give off fruit and they give off oxygen. And guys, when we look at our growth process, one of the most important things to remember is it's not just for us to soak information up. It's not just for us to have the knowledge in our heads. It's not just enough that we can make a passing grade on a test if we were to take a test. That knowledge, that growth is only valuable if we apply it and we share it. If we apply it, if we put into practice the things that we have learned, if we just take them out just as a knowledge out of our head and we put it into activity, we utilize the things that we have learned about that, and then not just utilize it on an individual basis, but share it with others. Share it with others. It's interesting when you think about the fact that one of the things that a plant needs is carbon dioxide, something that is a byproduct to us, that is about valueless to us. But they take something that is valueless to maybe the rest of nature, and they turn that into something that is needed by nature. Guys, there are people in your agency, they're frustrated, they're discouraged, maybe they don't know what to do, they don't know how to move forward. And guys, it may just be that you and I, on our growth process, experiencing and taking things in and growing and learning, taking those things we've learned and applying them and sharing them with other people is exactly what they need to jumpstart their growth process. So guys, when we begin this series on sharpening skills, let me challenge you and let me encourage you. Don't just sit there and say, well, if I'm going to grow, if I'm going to learn, somebody is going to have to do something. Somebody's going to have to send me to a class. Somebody's going to have to give me something. Absolutely not. If I'm going to grow, it's on me. If you're going to grow, it's on you. So begin by looking at what's around you. Begin by looking at the experiences that you've had. Begin by looking at the skills, the talents, the abilities, the hobbies, your personality. Begin by looking at what educational resources available to you. Begin to invest in yourself. And as you gain that knowledge, apply it and share it. Well, guys, we're by no means done. We're just now getting started in this process, talking about sharpening skills. But guys, I hope that just as we get this ball rolling, that on this first episode in this series, that I've been able to encourage you and to maybe motivate you to say, you know what? Yeah, it's on me. I've got to get in here. I've got to dig. I've got to sharpen my skills. Excuse me. I've got to take the initiative and do it. Well, guys, I'm looking forward to being with you next week and continuing this topic. And as I said, we've got some awesome interviews scheduled for the future to continue talking about this sharpening our skills. But until the next time, guys, stay sharp, stay safe, stay vigilant. Godspeed.